Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. In this tutorial I will show you how to remake foundation chain for V-stitch and granny stitch. This is because a lot of you requested after making the video for the double crochet. So here's what you need: your crochet project, which needs to be adjusted, a darn needle, contrasting color yarn, scissor, and a crochet hook. If you want, you can start with some swatches like I have here, if you want just to test this method. So I have two swatches, one in V-stitch and one in granny stitch, and I will do it one by one just to show you how to remake the foundation chain. So let's just start with the V-stitch. So I'm looking at the stitches and I see which one or how many rows I want to remove from from this swatch. So I will remove 2 rows, and then I'm taking the darn needle with the contrasting yarn, and I will insert the yarn through the bottom stitches of the last row that I will want to keep, like this. And you have to pay attention to insert the needle through all the loops that you have, which are the bottom stitches of this row. And I will carefully insert the yarn through all of them. This is basically the same as you have to do with the double crochet also, or other stitches, and through that chain, because this is a chain 3, and then I'm pulling the yarn like this, and we will keep it. You can use the same color yarn if you want, but I use a contrasting color yarn, and I suggest to use the same because this will be more visible. And now we will start to cut the 2 rows that we want to remove from our piece, or many rows if you need to just remove many rows. This method, if you can use it if you want to shorten some sleeve or a sweater or a blanket or whatever. This can help you to do it without having to undo the entire project. And now after cutting, you just have to remove those pieces of yarn that you have left from the row that you just cut it, and you'll have to carefully remove them all, and you will end up having only those stitches and those stitches in which you insert the yarn, and of course the contrasting yarn. This will be a tricky part because especially if you do it for the first time, you'll feel a bit like, oh my god, my stitches will go apart. But you don't have to worry about if you insert the yarn through all the loops and bottom stitches of the row that you will want to keep. Nothing will happen, so no stitches will get out or something like this. So you just have to remove all those remaining pieces of yarn from the row that you just got it. The only tricky part with this method is that at the end you'll get a small piece of yarn that will secure your previous row, but with some knots and maybe getting into a border or something like this, or hide them, you can just hide them and make it more secure. Okay, so I'm almost at the end with all the pieces of yarn that we have to remove. So let's see, we just have one more here. I will try to just make it everything as clean as possible. Okay, so these are the stitches. I think I still have a piece of yarn here that needs to be removed. I think I got it. Okay, so this will be the end knot that we will let it like this for now. So this is how the piece should look after you cut the rows that you don't need anymore. And now it's time to remake the foundation chain, and you'll have to have in mind the chain, how it looked, the chain. So in the pattern that I used, I had one stitch, then 3 chains between V-stitch, then V-stitch, 3 chain, V-stitch, 3 chain, V-stitch, 3 chain. So this is what I have to recreate now. So I'm taking my hook and of course the same color yarn, and I will insert the hook into the first stitch, the first loop that I have here. And I will take my yarn and rejoin the yarn. Okay, so this was the first step. We have now the yarn, and now I had to the first V-stitch I had 3 chains. So now I'm doing under the contrasting color yarn, inserting the hook under it, I'm doing slip stitches. Okay, so I have 2, 3 and 4. And now, okay, so I have the first stitch and for which I made 1 slip stitch and 3 more. And now you have to insert the hook through all the loops, so through the V-stitch that you have, and make a slip stitch. Then again another 3 slip stitches to the next V-stitch that you have, and then again we are doing a slip stitch through all the loops of the next V-stitch, and again 3 slip stitch, and then insert the hook through both of the double crochet of the V-stitch and make a slip stitch, and another 3 slip stitches, and then again another slip stitch, and we have 3 more slip stitches, two and 3, and we will do another one, the 4th, into the last double crochet that we have here. And basically we are done. We just remake the foundation chain. Now let me chain 1, and now you have to pull the contrasting yarn to remove it from your work, and this is it. You have now remade the foundation chain of your piece, and now the blanket or the sleeve or the sweater is as shorter as you want it to be. So basically this was it with the V-stitch. Now if you want, and if you need, let's say for example that you had a hole in a blanket and you wanted to just remove that hole, maybe you'll want, after removing the hole, to just add a few more rows to get to the previous length, you can start crocheting from now over this foundation chain. It's true that it will be in the opposite direction, so your V's will be in the opposite direction, but I don't think that this will be an issue, because of course it's better to have a few rows in the opposite direction which won't be that visible than a hole in a blanket. So this is how I'm working a single crochet row. Maybe you want to remake the border as well, so you can just work through those stitches that you have and rebuild the piece. Maybe you want to add a cuff for a sleeve or something like that. So you can just work in the opposite direction. Okay, now let's see what is about granny stitch. So with the granny stitch it will be the same. So the first steps are the same. So I'm getting the darn needle and the contrasting yarn, and I'm making sure that I'm pulling the yarn through all the bottom stitches of the last row that I want to keep. So I have here, I think I will remove 3 rows. So I'm just getting with the yarn through the bottom stitches of the last row that I will want to keep. And the same as on the V stitches, you have to make sure that you're pulling the yarn through all the bottom stitches. Make sure you don't forget one. It won't be a big issue, but you just have to, on the next steps, to just make sure that you see that stitch. Okay, now we will take the scissors and just cut the extra rows that we want to remove. So this step is the same for all stitch pattern. Doesn't matter what stitch pattern you are using. It's the same for double crochet, for half double crochet, whatever stitch you want to use. The only difference is when building the actually foundation chain, because you have to pay attention to the first row and how the first chain were looking. So now that we cut the extra rows, we just have to remove the pieces of yarn, the remaining pieces of yarn that we have here. Again, the tricky part of this method, but I think every single effort will is worth it, because you know, anything it's better than to just undo a project and do it right over from the beginning. So exactly how we did on the V-stitch pattern, we will just remove all the pieces of yarn that we have left from cutting the those extra rows, and we have to just remain with the clean stitches that are hanging on the contrasting yarn that you would just insert. Here I have a stitch that I forgot to insert the darn needle through it, so you see that it's nothing is happening. If you are losing one stitch, it won't get away or something. I just got to the end. Okay. And now here I will just make sure that I will have a small end just to tie it on here. I'll just have my hook just to make sure that this end, small end, is hanging the stitches. Okay, so I think it will be okay like this. And now again we have to think about the our foundation chain, how it was looking. So between each 3 double crochet cluster I had 2 chain stitches. So this is how we should remake the foundation row. So now I'm getting with the hook through this first stitch here and rejoin the yarn. Like this. And now I will do a slip stitch. I will do a slip stitch through the next cluster 2 because I told you that between clusters I had 2 chain stitches, so this is what we have to do. You have to pay attention that you will have the same number of stitches. And now through the clusters, the same as we did with the V stitches, we have to make a slip stitch through all of 3 double crochet. Then I have 2 slip stitches in between. Then I'm going through all 3 double crochets and I'm making a slip stitch. And again, between I'm going with 2 slip stitches and then again through all 3 double crochet. So you have to take a look at your foundation chain, how it's looking at the beginning before doing this, and make sure that you're recreating the same pattern. So I had 2 stitches that I skipped on the foundation chain between the 3 double crochet clusters. So this is what I'm doing now. So I'm doing 2 slip stitches between the 3 double crochet clusters. And then the 3 double crochet, I'm just working them together by making a slip stitches through all 3 double crochet. So basically it's the same as we did with the V stitches, only that because the stitch pattern is different, then it will be different how we will build our and remake our foundation chain. So we are almost to the end. I just have one more cluster to go. Another 2 slip stitches in between and I will finish with one more into the last stitch. Okay, and this was it with the granny stitch. Now we just have to remove the contrasting color yarn. Make a knot here, remove it. And this is it. We just have the piece that we needed with the length that we needed, and that's the same as I told you with the V stitch. You can now start working any rows that you will need, or border, or anything that you will need from this point to until you reach the desired length. So let's work a few stitches. I will do it also on the right side. You can basically if you are in the left side, you can just turn your work and work the stitches, but I will prefer to start also with the right side, and you just have to work in those chain. For example, I'm making single crochet stitches and try to remake the border or anything you will need to add. And of course that you can follow the same stitch pattern. Okay, the double crochet stitches or the granny stitches will be in the opposite direction, but as well as I told you at the V stitch, I don't think that this will be a big issue as long as your piece will look like I don't know, like you need it. Okay, for example, on a sweater, if you need a shorter sleeves, then you are sure that now they have the length that you needed, and you didn't had to undo everything to just if you already seamed the sweater, you don't have to remove it only to undo the sleeves stitching or the seam, and then to make this process or this method to just shorten them. So I think it's a great method and it's a lifesaver when you're having big projects and I don't know, you just realize that is too long, or if you have a project that you care about, like a blanket, but something happened and you have a hole in it and you just have to remove it from there. This is how you can do it. And if the hole in a blanket is in the middle of it, you can just remove it, and then the two pieces that you get, you can join them like with stitching to them together, or just join them with a different method. So I think it's good to know method, and at some point I'm sure that you'll need to use it. So this was the tutorial on how to remake the foundation chain for V-stitch and granny stitch. I hope you enjoyed it and you'll find this method useful, and I can wait to share with you some other tutorials, patterns, and other tips and tricks. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you didn't do it already, and I will wait till next time. Thank you. Bye.